Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I had a couple of technical problems here. I wanted to play my intro, but I couldn't do it, so that's not a problem. We are here. We are here with Skip Jansen and Don't Hate Create. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. How are you guys? Let's start with Fishy. Ladies first. How are you? Don't hate.
I am good. I'm excited to be here. And yeah.
Cool. So I think you're gonna be my co-host, and we are gonna be tonight with Skip Jansen. This is gonna be the episode number 3 with Skip. How are you, Skip?
I'm good. Excited to be here as well.
Yeah, looking forward, man. So tell us, what are we talking about tonight, Skip? Give us
Um,
some context.
well, it's kind of all this. There's a lot of stuff intertwined here, and it's fairly complex. But uh, I think we're going to show some of the things that were going on during the Delphi case that had an impact on the way the investigation went. Um, I don't. I may come into a case like this and look at it from a little bit different perspective than most people do. I don't go in searching for a POI and that kind of thing. I look at it from the standpoint of, why hasn't this case been solved? I started following the case in 2021, and it was 4 years in. Particularly with Delphi, you had a video, an audio, couple of witnesses, a couple of sketches, all that, and the case hadn't been solved. And so, from my perspective, I wanted to look at it as, why hadn't this case been solved? And I thought it was important to go back in before the murders of Abby and Libby and see what was going on with law enforcement in Indiana, and if there possibly anything could have happened that would have had a effect on the mindset of law enforcement at the time, as they kind of delved into the Delphi case.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we usually say that the first 48 hours are the most critical hours of the case, but you're right. We have to go even before the event. So that's awesome, man. So you sent some material to like to do the show today to be able to go easier with your presentation. So uh, when you want, man, we can start. I don't know, Fishy, if you have something to say.
I guess I agree with Skip. Like, that this stuff is definitely like relevant to how the investigation played out, and so I would just like implore people to actually like listen to the presentation before you make any like thoughts in your head, and just like hear out what he's saying, because I think it is definitely relevant no matter what you believe about like Richard Allen's guilt or not guilt.
Awesome. And the presentation, we're gonna put it available for the viewers. So I'm gonna do that after the show, uh, in order to give this material to the viewers. This is a big research that Skip made. So thank you, Skip, for that. So I will let you go with the presentation, Skip, if you want.
Okay, well, like I said, I was looking into things that happened before the murders of Abby and Libby, and I looked back into a guy by the name of Buster Hernandez, aka Brian Kil. He was a guy that for 3 years prior to the murders in Delphi, he had been uh, sextorting young girls in Indiana from 2014 through 2017. And as you'll see, this intertwines with a law enforcement group called the Indiana Internet Crimes Against Children Unit. Okay, what was just kind of getting their feet wet, getting above ground when all of this was going on. Um, and this guy's mo was he would was doing the same. He actually did the same. His MO was exactly like Kegan Kline's. He would procure and disseminate nude photos of young girls and threaten them, extort them, uh, by making threats. And you'll see as we in some of the screenshots, you'll see some of the threats he made. Not only did that, he was taunting the ISP during that time. And what I think this led to, as the Delphi murders happened, it kind of had the ISP's mindset as they walked up on that crime, made them believe maybe something that they thought they were looking at the time was had something to do with this. This guy first came on in 2015. The Brownsburg, Indiana Police Department contacted the FBI, and they were wanting assistance with this cyber threat case they were working on with the guy Brian Kil. And the threats were coming from Brownsburg, Indiana, Plainfield, Indiana, and a couple other places. He had done it in numerous towns in Indiana. He also would send bomb threats. He sent bomb threats to a couple of different towns. Plainfield, I know, where a mall they had to shut down, and this guy was just a big nuisance for the ISP at the time and the Internet Crimes Against Children unit. And so after the Delphi murders, and you could put this up 11 days after, an article was floated by WRTV about the Indiana Crimes Against Children's Unit's lack of funding. That they didn't have, they didn't have the kind of funding needed to be able to attack these threats they were getting. They were getting hundreds of threats, and they were mostly coming through social media, through Facebook, and they had no idea where this guy was. He had a VPN he was using. They had no idea. They were pretty certain he was in Indiana because all of his victims were in Indiana. And they actually had done several they had executed several search warrants in Indiana on people who they thought might be the perp.
Hey Skip, can I stop you for a second? Didn't Brian Kil use one of his victims to go to a closed meeting thing in Indiana that then she came back and reported to Brian Kil, so it made it seem like he was right there the whole time?
Right, exactly. Yeah. They had no reason to believe he was anywhere but Indiana at the time.
Yeah. That's scary.
If you put some of those screenshots, Cryptex, we'll show you what some of his threats were. Because he was taunting. There was a guy named Chuck Cohen was the head of the ICAC in Indiana. And again, the ISP had a cyber unit prior to taking on this government organization, the Internet Crimes Against Children's unit. And the reason they changed to it is because those groups are eligible for federal funding, whereas the ISP cyber unit wouldn't be. They would be only able to gain local funding or state funding. So that's, like I said, it was just getting kind of above ground at the time. They were trying to get it going. They didn't have very many people working there, but anyway, yeah, you can see what some of the stuff he says here. He talks about slitting young girls, young women's throats ear to ear. He talks about using a knife on their private parts. He talks about just a lot of, he's just a really vulgar, nasty guy. And this guy was
that one says, I want her to feel the world around her crumble as she hears the squeals of friends being ripped apart like pigs in a slaughterhouse. That's so crazy.
It is. But this was kind of typical of what he was saying. Like I said, it went on for 3 years. It started in 2014. and went on into 2017. And one thing you have to remember, and this is the one where he's using another alias, Greg Martian or Martain, I guess it is, where he says he's actually taunting Chuck Cohen. He's saying, can't believe that FBI are still waiting there on this. I'm above the law and always will be. You'll see in a second where he claims, or he brags that he wants to be the biggest cyber terrorist of all time.
What was the motive for the terrorism threats? Let's say we can understand the sextortion. He was similar to Kegan Kline, so I can understand that. But
Yeah.
what was the motive for the terrorism threats? Let's say it was like money or just power or arrogance. What was the?
Why was he doing that with the Indiana State Police? I probably just, I don't know. He probably got off doing that. He probably thought it was a power thing. He knew that they couldn't catch him. He knew they didn't. I guess maybe didn't have the resources to be able to identify him, and so he was just toying with him.
Was he able to do some terrorism act, or there was just threats? Let's say
It was just threats.
okay.
Well, like to some extent, it was just threats, but also like he like was using like one of the girls to like get at more girls, and then having them send back like images, and like he knew the one girl's garage code, so like he was like that's, I mean that's, I feel like winning at threatening people, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Here's one where he says this is a perfect place to use pipe bombs as well. Like I said, bomb threats were part of his MO. And as we start talking about Delphi, and you have to put yourself into law enforcement's minds, okay? You walk up to a crime scene where two little girls have been brutally murdered in a manner that mimics exactly the way he said he was going to do it. Okay. A few days after that, a bomb threat is called in to Indiana Packers, and when you know that this guy was the number one guy on their list, this is the guy. This was, if there was one case that they wanted to solve more than any other, it was identifying this guy. So,
hey Skip, can I stop you one more time? I'm sorry, I just keep interrupting you, but right here it says it feels like the community is willing to sacrifice Millie to appease the gods. That's a little like maybe that's part of the reason they were like looking into the Odinism thing as well or something. I don't know.
No, that's a good point. I think you'll see some other stuff in there that talks about a little bit. He has some strange verbiage that he uses, where he talks about that, things that could lead you to believe that there was some kind of ritualistic. He talks about it a good bit. He talks about rituals and things, and so again, put your mind with law enforcement at the time, and when you walk up onto a crime scene and it looks exactly like what someone's been threatening in that area, and you think, well, maybe this guy finally decided to do it. Then you have a bomb threat that comes in a couple of days later that matches his MO exactly. I certainly wouldn't blame anybody. I know I've been really hard on law enforcement, and I think they deserve that. But in this case, I wouldn't have blamed them for, certainly putting two and two together and looking into the possibility that this guy was had something to do with it.
Well, like there's also that Schillmiller case in Alaska that had the guy from Indiana that like actually did get some girls to like unalive their best friend. Like,
right. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But I thought it was funny. The reason I think, like I said, 11 days after, if you can get to that screenshot of the article, I know law enforcement has has their media people, whether it be, you know, mainstream media or social media, that they try to put, you know, a message out, and that's, you know, that's no big secret. But in this case, yeah, I didn't think it was just a coincidence that 11 days after the Delphi murders, they floated that story about the ICAC not having enough funding. Because I mean, when you think about it, I mean, you know, if you were part of the unit that had been taunted for 3 years, you know, by an individual that was threatening physical harm on females in Indiana, and you couldn't identify him, you know, and you discovered 2 little girls murdered in a manner that mimicked the threats, you know, talking about funding is probably not a bad way to go in terms of, you know, look, we've seen ISP try to get out in front of things, try to cover up things, you know, it's obviously they're self-image conscious and or image conscious, and so here it is. Yeah, you can see if it shows the date on there, but this was 11 days after the Delphi murders, and it was just kind of a random. There wasn't anything that necessarily there wasn't any impetus to this coming out. It was just an article that talked about how they needed funding, and we'll get into how they were able to obtain funding as the Delphi case went along, and how Kegan Kline's investigation played a role in that. As we talk a little bit further about
it. Skip. My understanding is that the FBI they had like a hard time to catch this guy. He was like a ghost online, like a phantom. It
Yeah,
was
right.
very difficult to.
Yeah, that was part of it. That was part of the funding. They said they needed the kind of the equipment to be able to you know, find and identify the person. And we'll talk about how he ended up being identified as we go along. But yeah, that was part of the article, was they talked about they needed funding and federal funding. Being in the ICAC unit now, they were able to access federal funding. And as the Delphi
and Skip, when you say that, like, law enforcement's mind was like on this case right here, the Brian Kil, like, I would say he's a terrorist, right? Like a domestic terrorism is what he was doing. But like, when you say that, you mean like the actual, like, Doug Carter, like Jay Abbott, like the actual investigators that are like very involved in Delphi were the guys that were like in charge of this guy, right? This case.
The exact same guys. And as a matter of fact, we'll show a video later that will show the press conference announcing the indictment of Buster Hernandez, and you'll see that Doug Carter, Greg Massa, Jay Abbott, the exact same guys that were involved in Delphi in the beginning were involved in the Buster Hernandez case.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you know, and like I said, there were a lot of things that matched his MO. The way the girls were killed, the bomb threat 8 days after the murders, and then I guess it was what was it? Let's see, what was the oh yeah, okay. So after the day after the funding article came out, was the day that they executed the search warrant on Kegan Kline's address on February the 25th. Okay. Now, what was unusual about it was the manner in which they did it. They rolled into his to execute this search warrant. The FBI did. They rolled in heavy. They closed down a main thoroughfare in the city of Peru. I don't recall them issuing any other search warrants that way. I forget how many cars they had on, but and I believe at the time, again, you have to think about what all they had seen, what all they'd been going through, what all that happened the prior 3 years. They saw Kline talking to Libby, right?
Right.
And doing some of the exact same stuff. He was using Dropbox, right, to procure and disseminate the photos. I think it's likely the reason is because they thought this likely was the same guy.
So, if I understand well, you think that maybe the FBI, they thought that Kegan was Brian Kil?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And and another thing it would also explain the output of law enforcement that was there early in the case, right? And everybody talked about there was an unusual amount of law enforcement in Delphi very early. And then, on the 25th, they show up, they roll in heavy into Peru and close down a main thoroughfare and to serve a search warrant on him. And so
It's
it's important to remember his MO was identical. I mean, identical to Brian Kil and Kegan Kline. I don't know that they have any association. Obviously, they're not the same person. But again, looking at it from law enforcement's perspective, I think it's likely that they thinking that this guy's in Indiana. 2 little girls have been killed in a manner that Brian Kil described. They find a guy who's talking to one of them and using Dropbox in the same manner that Kil was. I mean, it's not really far-fetched to believe that they thought there was a good chance they were going in. They were going to find who Brian Kil was when they went into Kegan Kline's.
Hey Skip, when Kegan Kline was in Las Vegas, didn't he make a trip to California?
I think so, yeah.
I don't know. That's just a side note, because isn't that where Buster Hernandez actually lived?
Yeah, they end up capturing him in California. He lived in.
And it's interesting, Skip, when you said that the modus operandi of Brian Kil and Kegan Kline is very similar or almost the same. We are not talking only about the sextortion. We are talking also about the nasty threats about cutting the throats. Remember the story of that girl, Kyla, that was interviewed by the murder sheet when she said that Kegan Kline was pissed because she showed up with a friend at that park in Galveston, and he told her, I can kidnap you, I can cut your throat, and I will watch you bleed out. So it's really very, very similar. It's crazy, huh?
Yeah, it's very similar. And again, this goes back into thinking about, looking into what law enforcement's mindset was at the time. Their number one target at that time for the previous 3 years had been Brian Kil, and a lot of things were happening in the Delphi case that mirrored that. And so I think a lot of the really early investigation that played a big role in it.
What about this comment from the agent Bob Ramsey when he said that we in no way believe he's connected to the murder of those girls?
Yeah. At that point, they obviously hadn't done a whole lot of research on Kline. They'd done a lot. They'd done a pretty good bit on Kil, but not any on Kline. So I think probably, just if I had to guess, they saw who he was. They knew there was a video out there. They saw who he was. They realized that's not the guy on the bridge. The guy on the bridge is not 300 and something pounds. And, but I think there's a possibility that's why it got dropped once they realized, hey, this isn't Brian Kil. So the emphasis on that aspect of it, was because maybe that was more of what the FBI was interested in, as opposed to the ISP, and so that could be possibly why that was they kind of dropped the ball on that.
What is this Twitter account, Delphi Kid Prob?
Yeah, I was told that through a law enforcement person that they made a connection with Kil into, and this was part of why they might have most likely believed he was involved in this, with an account called @DelphiKidProbs on Twitter.
That's
and
weird.
I think the account's still up. You can go in there, and if you go in and look at who is all is in, you're going to see a lot of familiar names.
Like what? Tell us some of the names. I need to
know. Richard Allen's daughter is follows that account. Daniel Pearson follows that account. There's a lot of names that have been brought up in the Delphi case that are accounts that.
So like kids from actual Delphi, like they follow that account, and that is definitely linked to Brian Kil.
Yep. That's
what the fuck, dude? That's wild.
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
And again, there's a lot of things that are pointing toward this guy somehow being involved. It turns out in the end he's not, but at that time, and remember, it's all about what law enforcement probably believed or likely believed. There were just a lot of things pointing toward Brian Kil being part, and there being some kind of cyber component to the Delphi murders.
Well, one of the big differences between Kegan Kline and Brian Kil, I would say, is that Brian Kil was very good at like hiding his IP address and stuff.
Right.
Whereas Kegan Kline was not. Like, he didn't use anything to hide his IP address or whatever. So
I wonder if at the time they thought that was their big break, maybe that hey, you finally got this guy to let down his guard or something, and that's why they rushed into Peru with so much manpower.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that Holman, when he did an interview after like the sentencing of Richard Allen, he was saying that like they still didn't know what was contained in some of the messages.
Right. Yeah, I didn't see that before he said that. All like I said, all of this is so interesting because a lot of this stuff is going on along with the Ron Logan stuff at the time. So they had a lot of, and Carter did mention the tentacles things. When you look at Brian Kil and the cyber aspect and the internet crimes against children unit and all that, there really are. It may not be what he's referring to exactly, but there are a lot of tentacles. There are a lot of things involved in this that affected the investigation. Maybe not affected who the actual who's bridge guy, but it certainly affected the investigation. And again, like I said, that's why I was looking into, it from that perspective of why this case hasn't been solved. Not so much trying to identify a person of interest or like that. Early on, I was just I looked into it trying to find out, why. There's a reason. What set of circumstances occurred that's made this case difficult for them to solve.
Do you have any idea why they kicked like the FBI off of this case? Do you like have any inside knowledge on that?
Not anything verified. I mean, I think it probably just mainly a disagreement in how the investigation was handled. I think the release of the second sketch was was problematic, and it was a point of contention with not just ISP and the FBI, but also with Carroll County and the ISP. And so I think there were just a lot of things about it that one was wanting to zig, while the other wanted to zag. And so and I think that, again, that's all part and parcel of why the investigation went for as long as it did.
And here, Skip, we have also Ron Logan. Uh, what's what's the connection or the potential connection you're presenting here with
No,
in regards of,
I mean,
Ron Logan?
no connection really. Just the fact that that was going on simultaneously.
Hmm.
That Ron Logan was being looked at uh, by the FBI at the same time. And I think it showed that ISP was, I think probably the biggest significance. ISP was looking at the cyber connection.
Hmm.
Um, FBI was looking at Ron Logan, and maybe they just never were able to kind of get on the same page, whether it had anything, I think we saw as the investigation went further, the ISP did not want to get off that cyber component. They didn't want to get off the cyber aspect of the case, of the investigation, right? I mean, it was unusual because not only was Kline's investigation, that was what we talking about 5 years in when they were looking into Kline still. They kind of dropped it, came back to him, and it was still going. And I always thought it was odd that they didn't say anything, gave out zero information in the investigation for 5 years, yet they let the Kline investigation play out in public, and for the public to see, including a river search, and they allowed the murder sheet to narrate it for everybody to keep up with. Now, why would they do that, yet not release anything else prior to that at all? Again, we're gonna talk a little bit about funding and about what the requirements, the criteria are for funding, and how that all goes about, and people can make up their own mind. But I always thought that was strange that they handled the Kline thing totally different than they handled anything else.
What about that paragraph here, Skip, about Ron Logan bringing the computers to everything computer, requesting the computers to be rejected?
Yeah, that was something I actually never verified. Someone told me that. Someone told me they had information about everything. Some I won't say who or anything, but they said that Ron Logan, and it had some gruesome things, and it kind of pointed maybe towards him, and but I never verified any of it.
Okay.
The Ron Logan stuff that's involved in this was just mainly to show that one agency was looking at him, one agency was looking at somewhere else, and there was uh, that seemed to be, like I said, a point of contention and disagreement all along. And I think another strange that you bring up that about on the 24th of March, they issued that normalization bulletin, which I always thought was strange as well.
Tell us about that, about the normalization thing.
Yeah, they issued a bulletin out of the Lafayette Post, and basically just said that what they said is that they're scaling back the manpower and the some of the outside agencies, and getting the investigation back to a normal level. Which I don't know. What did anything happen to cause that? I mean, that's just a month into it. So I thought that was a little odd.
Yeah, that's a little bit weird.
In that thing you just pulled up, Cryptex, doesn't it say that like they had gotten the tips down to a manageable number, and like they were fine without any extra help?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what they said.
Yeah, that's interesting, since people were saying that like they were so overwhelmed with with the with the tips that they lost Richard Allen's.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, now what we know about it, and the loss or taped over interviews and all that kind of stuff. That is kind of an odd statement because it's right after all that stuff happened.
What about the? Can we come back to the funding? What's the what's behind that? They were looking for money, or what's exactly the?
Yeah, as part of joining the Internet Crimes Against Children unit, which is a federal agency, they took that on in lieu of their previous their cyber unit and made them eligible for federal funding. And you saw that article 11 days after the murders that they needed funding. And so, without getting too far ahead, over the next 4 years from 2017, I'll update the numbers as we go, but from 17 to 2021, they were able to obtain about $6 million in funding, in federal and local funding. So for an agency that went for, had an article about they didn't have any funding, they had $6 million 2 years later. So, and look, I think, and that's good. I'm all for agencies that fight crimes against children. I think the question is do you manipulate the system to gain that funding? That would be, I think that's the question. But I'm all for any agency that fights crime against children to have, as much funding as they need.
Good point. And you have also here that we know that the billboards were taken down in July 2017. What's behind that, Skip?
Well, let me go back to Hernandez a little bit.
Yeah.
Hernandez. Skip, can you find the screenshot where it says the Facebook helped identify Buster Hernandez?
Skip, are you digging through the trash right now?
It's an article. It's probably back. No, it's further down. You need to go ahead.
Okay, let me.
I think you did. I think I may have just seen it. Keep going a little further.
Wasn't Brian Kil also the Purge of Maine or whatever?
Yeah, he was. That was one of his. I think he had 48 that they known 48 known aliases that he used. You just had it just a second ago.
I don't remember that screenshot. Is this one? No.
It was one. It was blue. It has the photograph from the front of it.
That
right?
one?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. How Hernandez ended up being caught was Facebook invested $100,000. I believe it's the right amount, maybe more. Into developing some software that could penetrate his VPN. Okay, because he was, they normally wouldn't do something like that, because of privacy issues and all that. But because he was using Facebook to taunt these people and using it to contact these females and all that, they invested this money into it to identify and penetrate, like I said, penetrate his VPN. And let's see, it was in June of June 9th of 2017, the FBI was able to locate him. They were able to penetrate his VPN and identify him. Brian Kil, his name was Buster Hernandez. He lived in Bakersfield, California. He had never stepped foot in the state of Indiana. A month later, it's when I think how it plays in with Delphi is that 1 month later is when the Old Bridge Guy sketch was released. Okay. Remember, they didn't release the sketch for 5 months. Their narrative was, well, it was, there are multiple people and these things don't happen quick, and somebody came forward late. Well, we know now from the witnesses nobody came forward late. So what was the need? What was the need for that? What was the need to that rhetoric? What was the need to, hey, the reason we didn't release this sketch for 5 months, is because of this. Well, we know that's not right. We know that if we are to believe them that this person that they say was the main witness to Old Bridge Guy, well, she says she came forward 3 weeks after the murders. How's that 5 months? How's that coming forward later? How does it take that long to get a sketch out? It doesn't. Okay. Now I don't believe how I believe how we've been told about the sketches is right at all anyway. But it's interesting that they waited that long. It happened just a week. It happened just a month after the identification of Hernandez. Then a month after that, on August the 2nd of 2017, the FBI went into California and arrested Hernandez and charged him with 41 counts of sextortion and whatever else his charges are. We've got the indictment. But it's interesting that they had always believed he was in Indiana. Every search warrant they issued was in Indiana. It was taking computers out of homes in Indiana. There's no reason for them to believe he was anywhere but Indiana. Turns out he was in California. Facebook was able to develop a software or have a software developed that penetrated his VPN, and they were able to identify him and then go arrest him. The FBI did.
Yeah, now, the timing is interesting, huh?
Yeah. Now here's something else that's interesting. Do you have that? Can you play that press conference? You want the video?
The one for the press conference, right?
Yeah.
Give me just 1 second here. Just 1 second, guys. Okay. It's coming soon. That one?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, if you queue it up to, what did I tell you to queue it up to? 20.
Just
okay,
check.
This is the press conference announcing the arrest, indictment of Hernandez. But listen to what
federal weird.
Yeah, that guy's
federal.
I got
federal.
As you can see in the video, Carter's there, Abbott's there. They all speak. Greg Massa, all the same guys that are in Delphi. And this guy's the chief of police in Plainfield. And listen to what he said.
Saying goodbye to 2 of our fellow officers here in Central Indiana. I'm sure that many of the Plainfield town officials
Can you turn it up, Cryptex?
would love to get up here and talk also, but I just know on behalf of them, this is.
It's like the video itself has like a low volume. It's not my computer. It's actually the video. Can you hear or not at all?
I can hear it, but barely.
Really brought a good solution, a final solution to this case. And I just want to tell the people of Delphi that their case too will be solved with these gentlemen, that their agencies behind them. You can see they just don't ever give up. So I can't express my thanks enough to all the agencies involved in this, local, state, and federal. And hopefully that we'll never have to come together again on such an issue. Thank you.
Okay, that's the part. He just kind of arbitrarily mentioned Delphi in the Buster Hernandez press conference. Seems kind of strange, right?
Can you repeat the skip? I didn't understand.
I said it seems kind of strange that he just kind of arbitrarily mentioned Delphi in the Buster Hernandez press conference.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Tells me there's some connection somewhere, somehow, you know. And maybe it's just what we're talking about now, that law enforcement, had a belief early on. And those, like I said, those same guys, the same law enforcement officers that worked on that case worked on the other.
Yeah, that omission was not on purpose, let's say, or what was not accidental, for sure. Yeah, I agree with you.
And there's also, if you could find the screenshot where it's talking about, it's the which one is it? It's the one where they're talking about, it's another article, same kind of deal, same article about the funding and about the internet crimes against children unit. It talks about see.
It's a screenshot or?
No, it's an article. It's about from Wish TV.
Okay. Give me 1 second here. Okay, I have it here.
I'll tell you what it's entitled. It's titled. And a look inside Indiana State Police Cybercrime Unit.
Okay. Just 1 second. Just 1 second, guys.
They're interviewing, the interview is with a guy named Brian Brunner.
It's coming. Okay, I think I have it here. That one?
Yeah. What you'll see in the article is one of the, I don't mean to be picky, but it says persistence is what led police to a Bakersfield, California home. Federal investigators said the man who lived there, Buster Hernandez, sexually extorted with threats, sharing, compromising, and launched a cyber terrorism campaign that shut down 2 Indiana schools. I mean, I don't know. Maybe ISP's not really taking credit for it, but they seem to be taking credit for something they really didn't do.
Well, I think they kind of like are trying to save face, because like that guy toyed with them for like years, like 3 years. That like little freaking 26-year-old like incel living with his girlfriend's grandma was totally like besting a whole law enforcement, like all of ISP. So I'm sure that they like really just were trying to
Save face.
Save a little bit of face, you know?
Yeah, kind of similar to the things we've seen in Delphi, right?
Yeah, totally.
So their MO is very similar. It's trying to get out in front of stuff. Hey, before it goes sideways on them, and then trying to state that their involvement in it was heavier than it was. There's one thing I've noticed, and like I said, I've been hard on these guys, and I think a lot of it's deserved. But I've never seen a law enforcement agency that is as self-image conscious as this group is. I mean, it's all about perception. It's all about what. It's why we've had so much misinformation, disinformation, all of that's been released in this case.
Well, Skip, you say that you've been hard on law enforcement and that some of it's deserved. I feel like way more criticism is deserved on law enforcement, and it kind of like frustrates me that people are just okay with their, like, sorry for cussing, their bullshit answers and their like lack of accountability. Like, I want to know that this shit isn't going to happen again. And I don't live in Indiana, but like it's ridiculous. And then like in this case, there was like the internet component to it, and like basically the FBI came in and like helped them out with Facebook. They made this knit or something is what it's called, and I think they paid like a hacker to make the code. But like I didn't understand why they didn't use the FBI to try to recover their lost interviews and stuff like that.
Well, again, look, here's the part that I don't get is when somebody lies to you, right? At what point do you know what they're telling you is the truth and what's not? I mean, it's like anything they tell you in the future. It's like, well, I have this secret code decoder ring that I can tell when somebody's lying to me and when someone's not. When someone lies to you, you don't know what they're telling you in the future, whether that's true or not. So when law enforcement has lied all this time about stuff that's to cover up what their mistakes, how do we know when they're telling the truth? How do we know? Because to get to Richard Allen being bridge guy, you have to entrust them and prosecution somewhat, right?
A lot. I think you have to trust them a lot.
Yeah, a lot. So how do you do that when somebody that you know has lied to you in the past?
Well, I don't. That's my problem with the whole verdict and everything. Is I think it's ridiculous, and I think that like they didn't let so much of the information in that it's not like the jury's fault, but like I think that anyone who just blindly trusts this verdict and the law enforcement and just any of it is, I don't know, maybe they just have had a lot of nice, loyal people or something in their lives, but for me, it doesn't fly.
Yeah, with me either, and that's the problem. It's like, hey, we're seeing a pattern here. We're seeing law enforcement trying to get ahead of something by floating a story 11 days after a murder, because they think, oh shit, what if it's this guy who's been messing with us 3 years and we hadn't been able to identify him? Now he's starting to kill little girls in our state, and then we hear this, oh yeah, we were part and partial to identifying and arresting this guy when they weren't. It was all done by the FBI, and so when you start seeing a pattern with an agency, it gets where it's hard to have trust. It's hard to say, well, that's why I don't understand the people who just say, yeah, he's definitely the guy because law enforcement says this, and law enforcement says that. Well, based on what they've told us in the past, I don't give them the benefit of the doubt anymore. They don't deserve it because they've lied to us. They put out misinformation.
Yeah, a ton of it, and people like they say like the FBI. They say the FBI is like a crappy law enforcement agency, but in my opinion, like the FBI is like known to be very good at like getting digital information like back or off like people's devices and stuff. So that they went and got some Chinese software instead of using the FBI to try to get that stuff back is honestly wild to me. Plus, the FBI actually did police work. Like, I don't know if you Skip follow All Eyes on Delphi, but to me, she's like the best at like this case, like knowing everything that's going on because she's gone through literally every court document, and like she like shows that like the FBI did actual police work, whereas you can't say the same for Carroll County or like ISP. In my opinion, I think they did not do very good police work.
Yeah, I agree about All Eyes. She's great. Yeah, look, one thing I noticed, even from the very beginning of all this, is there was always some narrative that went along with every piece of information that we found out, right? And it was always something that favored somebody and somebody did something wrong. You know, it was like the old bridge got sketched. Why did it take 5 months? You know, you could watch that and tell that because he was the information officer, Riley was the one that was in charge of getting up there and lying, basically. And so you could tell he was uncomfortable doing that. He was stuttering and stammering all over the place. You know, he would say she, and it was always done by multiple people, and it takes a long time, and you know, they didn't come forward till later, and you know, then we find out none of that's true, and then we hear about Betsy Blair about how she was just itching to get beating on law enforcement's door to get to say her sketch was right, and then no, she didn't really want to come forward, and everything, all these narratives that go is like to excuse something. And again, when somebody starts doing that, you lose. I mean, they lose your trust because they're trying to mislead, right?
Yeah, and I think the thing that people confuse like is they think if you're saying that, you're saying there's like some crazy conspiracy, which like I definitely would say it's incompetence over a conspiracy all day long.
I have a question for you guys. When we were talking about trust, and that was my case actually at the beginning when law enforcement they arrested Richard Allen. My stupid reflex, let's say, was to trust the situation. Let's say in my mind, they have the right guy. Then when we started learning all of this fishy and crappy situation, the bad investigation they conducted, my mind changed over time. So I still believe that Richard Allen was involved somehow. But why do you think law enforcement put the blame on Richard Allen? It doesn't seem like the easiest guy to put the blame. You know what I mean? They could have I don't know. They could blame Kegan Kline or Tony or Ron Logan. Why do you think they didn't use those guys uh, to put the blame on the murders and they chose Richard Allen instead?
I mean, well, it had to be somebody they could put there. Okay, that at a minimum, you have to put somebody at the crime scene. Okay, that's why I see a lot of people say, well, they bring up a bunch of names. You really can't go any further, outside of people that were there. Now, some people may not have been known to have been there, but you can't kill somebody unless you're at the scene, right? So they could do that. Okay, that was the first thing. I'm not saying this is why they did it. I'm not saying they did do it. When people ask me what my opinion of Richard Allen is, I say I don't have one because I don't trust anything law enforcement's told us because they've lied to us so much. So I think probably to get an arrest affidavit, to get all the stuff that you need to get prior to the arrest and prior to the trial, you have to have something to be able to arrest the guy. You can't just say, well, You know, yeah, and part of that is him being in the near the location, not having an alibi, whatever, all of those things. So if that's what happened, that would be my guess. Is they had somebody who they could put at the crime scene.
Or maybe,
And
yeah, go ahead, Fishy.
no, you go ahead.
Or maybe law enforcement is protecting someone. Let's say just speculation, pure speculation, but I'm just trying to find an answer here. Let's say the clients are connected to someone with power inside law enforcement. That could be maybe a reason. I'm just trying to think about some possibilities. Go ahead, Fishy. I interrupted you.
Well, I'll comment on what you just said really quick, and then I'll go into what I think about like what happened or how they got to that. For one, I think that that's like a valid thing to ask because, like, we don't want to think about like officials and such being in like involved in, let's say, CSAM with children or whatever, but it's definitely something that like happens. And that one chick that was like interviewed, and she was talking about the judge, and then like and a whole like boys club basically involving like certain people. And then we see like Jay Abbott and Doug Carter are like very linked and good friends, and they just give me the vibe of guys that would do stuff like that. And I know that people are going to hate that because they love Doug Carter a lot, but like I have pretty good perception of people that are like that. And he definitely, in that one interview with Kelsey where they're like in her house, I definitely just get like weird things going on there. So I mean, it's a valid question to ask, I think. And then for my opinion on like how they would get to that point, I think like the delay in Richard Allen being actually looked at as a suspect plays like a big part in it. And then I think it maybe was just like a all these things kind of came into play at once. So like like I think Jerry Holman legitimately thinks that the bullet evidence would be like a fingerprint, right? So when he's questioning Richard Allen, he's like, he 100% believes he's got the guy. And so he goes hard on him, and then they arrest him. And then from that point, it's basically just confirmation bias because they're not looking at the evidence and having it lead them to Richard Allen. They're taking Richard Allen and finding the evidence that fits him. And so, like, if you're looking for that stuff, you just might find it. You know what I mean? And so,
Yeah.
like, the whole way they investigated him, and I'm not saying anybody is like, it's not a conspiracy to me. It's like just a storm of things that had to like happen to end up with him being the guy. Like just the way they tested the bullet and all of these things just like ended up railroading him. Like, and as far as him saying he was wearing the same thing, well, like, I mean, who knows what you're wearing fucking 5 years ago? If they told him, we know you were wearing this, somebody saw you, he'll be like, okay, I guess I was wearing that. Like, how's he supposed to remember what he was wearing that long ago? You know? And then, like, people saying that he didn't have the phone. He did at the time he went to the cops. Like, he gave it to them. They took down his IMEI number. So, like, that's another mute point to me that I think is ridiculous to say, like, that makes him guilty. So, and then, like, the cops didn't do, like, the things to, like, solidify any of their information, like, get bridge guy's height or just, like, little things like that just really bother me.
Yeah, 100%. No, the
Yeah,
investigation was crap.
yeah. What she just said about the fact that they retrofitted the investigation to meet the criteria for saying Richard Allen is bridge guy, right? It was all. I mean, not only did they do that, but then all the stuff that could possibly impeach that was just disappeared. Gone. Let me ask you a question. What would you say if I could show you evidence? Well, let me preface this by saying that Betsy Blair's sighting was a huge part of the the trial in the case, right? That puts him there at 150. Nobody else is around. That's kind of the way the prosecution did it. They narrowed it all down to where, hey, this guy was there. He was the only one there. Nobody else could have done it, right? That's kind of the gist of their theory, right? What if I could show you proof that there was someone else there? I mean, I'm talking about proof, okay? That someone else was there who's lied about what time they got there multiple times and looks exactly like young guy sketch. Looks identical. If that would have been allowed in the trial, and the jurors had the option of saying, okay, who did Betsy Blair likely see? Richard Allen, this 5'4" guy that's 40 years old or whatever, or this guy in his 20s that Betsy Blair describes exactly and looks just like the sketch she did. Which one would they say?
The young guy that looks like the sketch.
Yeah. And I can show you proof that his family said what time he got there at 1:30. Her girl he was with, family, and his friends, the girl he was with, family, said she got there at 1:30. I'm not saying he's bridge guy. I'm saying, but he's very likely who she saw. If you said, hey, is this the guy she likely saw, the way she described and the sketch she did, everybody would say it's that guy. Nobody would say it's Richard.
Well, plus Betsy Blair was there on multiple, she was there at 2 different times. So how are we supposed to know if she saw him? She could think she saw him on her 3rd loop or whatever, but maybe she actually saw him when she was there a little bit earlier when he said he was there. Or and then people say oh, well, nobody else was on the trail that we don't know. They didn't know Richard Allen was there. So who else do they not know was there? It's honestly ridiculous to me. And then if they had this car the whole time, why did they not put that out to find the actual guy? It's 4 years ago. What?
And and especially when you size that up with the fact that the people that were there came forward early and their testimony is no longer available. It's just gone, taped over, gone. So there's no proof of anything they said in their interviews, right? So they can say, well, this guy didn't get there to so and so. Well, I've got proof he did. That's wrong. If you believe his family and friends and her family said they got there at 1:30, not only that, he told law enforcement he got there at 2:30 and told everybody on social media he got there at 3. Something's wrong. Why in a double murder case are you lying like that? Did you know?
Yeah.
Did you know you were seen? You may not be bridge guy. You may not have killed anybody. You most likely didn't. But you can provide information that impeaches what all the other arguments that have been put.
Hey, Skip, one thing that always stands out to me that you said, and I don't remember what you said it in, but you said, if the person is bridge guy, then they know what time to say that they were not at the area where bridge guy was. So
Exactly.
For Richard Allen to come in and try being helpful, tell them that he was wearing the same shit and he was in the exact place, to me has always just been what the fuck? That sounds like an innocent guy to me, and also a very bad timing or whatever. But because he should know what time to say, he would know to not be there right then.
Exactly. Yeah. Whoever the killer was would know, hey, I've got to avoid being there between whatever, 1:30 and 2:30 or whatever. So, the last, and I've got to avoid saying that I was wearing, a blue jacket and blue jeans, So why would somebody come, we're saying the innocent people all avoided, denied all that, made up times they were there. But the guilty guy just walked right into it. It doesn't make any sense.
And we tend to say, or we try to comptabilize the people that were on the trails that day. We talk about McCain, Daniel Pearson, uh, all the people that were there. But we have to think also that if someone is gonna go to that area to commit a murder, maybe he was around the trees, something like that, trying to hide. He's not
You
gonna
mean
be
he didn't park at the CPS building and walk on the main street covered in blood all the way back to his car? Like, what? That would be crazy. Like, what
exactly.
the fuck? But at the same time, say he was like so smart and planned this out. Like, it just makes zero sense. Like, it doesn't make sense.
And the whole thing, all the narrative regarding the sketches is so much bullshit. I mean, let me ask you this. In March of 2019, right? If we're supposed to believe that Sarah Carball and Betsy Blair were the witnesses and were the witnesses all along, is what law enforcement was trying to get us to believe, right? But nobody else is mentioned. Then how come Tobe told Hannah Shakespeare in March of 2019 that the exit witness they had who saw a bridge guy leave back toward the Freedom Bridge was Daniel Pearson?
If you want to talk about the Hannah Shakespeare stuff too, in that documentary, didn't that witness say that she was there? That it was like at 12 something, like
Yeah.
And also in that audio that was like them talking about it before the documentary, and they were like saying that she could talk to the one witness, the girl, but that they definitely couldn't talk to Daniel Pearson. And I was
Yeah.
thinking, like, that's fucking weird. Why would they want like a young under 18 girl, like, put her at risk and say, yeah, she could talk to him, but Daniel Pearson can't? Like, man up, dude. What the fuck?
Because his role in the investigation exposed exactly what happened. I mean, how can you have a guy who for the first 2 years was your primary witness, was contributor to the old bridge guy sketch, and you made him completely disappear, the prosecution has, and you made his story and what happened disappear, and it's all revisionist history. It's all just made up. Well, yeah, Sarah Carball and Betsy Blair, were always the witnesses, and there's just no mention of the guy who was the primary witness for the first 2 years, because it shows his role, and it shows what a joke the investigation was for the first 2 years. They don't want that out there. They'll do anything they can to keep that from getting out there. Why do you think they disregarded Betsy Blair's testimony for the first 2 years? The lady who says the only person who saw potentially Abby and Libby and saw them walking directly in the path of a guy, and they disregarded that. Why do you think that is?
I don't know why.
Because they had another witness. They had Riley seeing him enter, Pearson seeing him leave. They thought he left via the Freedom Bridge. This for the first 2 years, and they've made that just completely disappear. And
Did they think he was wearing all black too?
What's that?
Did they think he was wearing all black too?
I don't look. The stories gotten so, I just look. They're not being honest about it. Okay. I mean, the fact that you just made a guy disappear who was the primary witness for the first 2 years, you just made him disappear like he's not even involved. That's ridiculous. That's what they did. He was in discovery. The only thing he was in discovery about was the fact that he did a sketch, but it was McCain. And here's the thing about it is, so when did he recant his testimony and say he saw McCain? Right? They grilled him initially for 5 hours. Law enforcement did, right? They thought he had, and then he did contribute to a sketch. Well, Tobe says he was primary witness in 2019. Well, the old bridge guy sketch was the prevailing sketch at that point. That means he was part of that. He wasn't part of any sketch that did McCain. He told a guy wasn't even aware of McCain until 2020. So how could he recant it back prior to the second sketch change and say, "Oh, I saw McCain"? No, he didn't even know about McCain until 2020. It's all
Well, I also have an issue with like the way that law enforcement questioned people, like because they can influence people's testimony, and from like what I could tell, like if we're depending on who are we depending on to question these witnesses and get their story, because like you have to be like careful with how you do that and not influence them.
Yeah, well, exactly. And now that the first week or whatever, however long, just gone, we'll never know how those initial witnesses were. Now when you consider all these things and you can consider the Hernandez thing, you see why a sketch probably wasn't released for 5 months. And it didn't have anything to do with the narrative that they put out about the, it takes some time, and it, the only thing they did say was remotely was that it probably came from multiple people. But yeah, that you mentioned earlier you thought that the which led to what, was it the corruption, which came first, corruption or the incompetence? I think my opinion, it was the incompetence that led to corruption, if you want to use that term, the lying, the disinformation that was put out intentionally. It's really amazing when you go back and look at the links they went to mislead people. It's incredible. And yet you have to ask yourself why. I mean, is that just so they can, save face? I mean, are they that image conscious where they're like, hey, we have to make ourselves look good here because, and of course they can justify it by saying, well, we've got to keep the trust of the people, serve and protect, whatever. BS. The fact is, we've been misled big time, and that's just a fact.
What do you think, Skip, about the recent developments regarding the box cutter in the confession of Ron Logan back to 2017, and the timing of the van passing in front of the camera at 2:44? I'm interested in your opinion about that.
I think the box cutter goes back to what Fishy was saying about they carved out a investigation narrative that fit talent. It wasn't, but look, it's the investigation went like this. They never heard of a guy for 5 years or whatever, and then they arrest him 2 weeks after they learn of him. Whereas most investigations would go the opposite. You learn the name early on, and it would take you that long to get the amount of evidence against someone. So that that's part of what led to the incompetence, and has led to the misinformation and all that. As far as the I mean, I've never heard of a medical examiner changing like that after some. Oh well, it could have been a box cutter, yeah. I mean, it was like they were just taking whatever he said and just saying, okay, this, or whatever they said he said, and changed it. It started out, hey, it could have been a whatever, large knife, serrated knife, whatever, and then all of a sudden, well, yeah, it could have been a box cutter as well. Well, there could have been two knives. The whole thing is extremely sketchy. I mean, it's not how investigations are supposed to be run. I mean, they know that, and they're trying to hide that fact. and act like they, of course they'll admit we made some mistakes. No, you made more than just some mistakes. You made some humongous errors in judgment. You misled the public. You misled everybody in this. And was it just for your own, their own good? The ISP sell their image of themselves, and trying to keep that up because of, promotions and future endeavors and all that. I don't know, but as far as the Ron Logan thing, I don't know. That should have been brought up. There's a couple of things here. There's the investigation, and then there's the things that happened in the trial. And a lot of things that happened in the investigation were not brought up in the trial, and that's unfortunate because nobody got to see the true picture of what happened, particularly when it came to the witnesses. It came to the timeline, came to everything, really. And now you've got somebody coming in after the fact, and there's information that, that could have possibly, exonerated somebody. Because you don't know. I mean, would the testimony against that Betsy Blair saw someone else, would that have been enough to say, well, that wasn't Richard Allen? You can't put him there now. If you can't put him there, probably wasn't him, right? Or this story with the guy and Ron Logan. If Ron Logan's saying he did it, is that enough to say that Richard Allen did? Those things, people just want the truth, People don't want all this lawyering, legalese tricks and shit. They don't want that. People want the truth. People want lay it all out there and let the cards, fall where they may.
Yeah. Well, my point is when you have an investigation that poorly conducted, how can you trust the outcome of the investigation? I can't. It's really hard to accept that outcome as correct, but because there were a lot of incorrect things during the whole investigation. The investigation was just crappy. It's unacceptable. Makes me mad, really.
Well, the bad part too is that you see a pattern with the Hernandez versus Buster Hernandez thing about there's the same kind of deal. The investigation wasn't handled properly. Somebody else, solved it, and they took credit for it. So, you're seeing kind of some of the same kind of motives in both things, and it's I think that tells a lot.
Yeah. I think it's wild that they would kick like the FBI off, even if they did have a disagreement of like who did it or like difference in opinion. Like how I don't understand why the FBI didn't handle a lot more of the stuff. And then to furthermore at the trial have the guy who erased all the interviews be their person that's like in charge of their tech for the fucking trial that just goes to show that they don't care when they have incompetence. They don't fucking handle it properly to like make it not happen again. So like, why would I trust any of the investigation? Like they fucked up. Like, and clearly they keep doing it because they still have the same people in charge.
Exactly. And the way that the discovery was handled from the prosecution is another, at a minimum, a lot of it is misleading. Some of it was straight out lies. And so how do you get through all that? How does the defense get through all that? They're kind of at the mercy. They haven't followed the case like a lot of people, like people in social media have. So they don't know all, and there's so many, so complex, and there's so many things involved that they don't know that. I know the defense admitted, hey, we probably should have paid a little more closer attention to social media and some of the things that were known that they didn't, just to have something to compare it to. But just the way the whole thing was handled, I don't know if the guy's guilty or innocent or not. Just the way it was handled and the way ISP, every time a mistake was made, there was some narrative, or every time some information was leaked, there was a narrative attached, or every time a mistake was, they blamed it on the FBI. Oh, the FBI can't input data. The FBI can't pick up a video camera. I mean, some of the stuff, it was just so ridiculous. It's like they almost feel like they can just say anything, and people say, "Well, okay, yeah, you're right."
They can. They literally can. Like that is what people have shown, is that they can say anything, and like they can totally switch up what they're saying, and people are just like, okay, like I guess that's what's happening now. And it's like they didn't go through and like seal up like anything that they like with a circumstantial case that doesn't have like the actual like DNA or whatever. Like they should have done those things to like solidify what the information they did have, like the bridge guy heights. That would be like the difference between Richard Allen and Ron Logan. Clearly, like fucking do that. Like why not do that? You can do that. They have the bridge is a perfect like thing to be able to do the heights because you have a defined like length in the picture. Like fucking do your job. Like that pisses me off.
No.
Well, yeah. The whole thing about the video, what happened originally, I think that, at least my opinion of it is when they saw that they had this video and they had the audio, they thought they thought that was the holy grail. I mean, they thought that, hey, we can release this. Somebody's going to come forward and say, no, that's Joe Blow down there who works on my car, or whoever it is. And when that didn't happen, and then again, this goes back to the old bridge guy sketch not being released for 5 months. When that didn't happen, they panicked. And all of a sudden it was like, oh shit, we're 5 months in and we really haven't done anything. We're kind of waiting on this guy, the FBI, and everybody's wondering, well, why the FBI and ISP not getting along? Well,
Skip, if they panicked, did they go and get like the actual footage from the Hoosier Harbor store? No. Did they get the footage from the storage place? Was that guy that said that? No. Like, did they fucking get like specialist people involved and like bring them in? Like, what's his name? The Thomas guy, the sheriff guy, Thomas, that was saying that Robert Ives said to get specialist people in there. And so they don't have the blood analysts come in until fucking trial. Like, what the fuck, dude? Like, that shit pisses me off. Like, they did a shitty job at investigating this, and anybody who believes that the cops did a good job are just fucking dumb. Like, they're just taking Doug Carter's propaganda. Like, fucking, it's all politics. Like with Doug Carter, he's good at talking. So people that like are easily influenced, they're just like sucking at his dick, I guess. And fucking, I want nothing to do with that.
Listen, I agree with you. I mean, it became, not long into the case, it became a propaganda PR machine. I mean, that's what it became about. Instead of about solving the murders of two little girls, it became about, it became about, hey, it all after everything after that was about PR, I mean, like we talked about, I mean, everything, and even up till the arrest, and it was, I mean, blaming the FBI for stupid shit like, can't input that, and then finding out that's not true, and where's the accountability? It's like they're in a business of holding people accountable, right? Well, they don't seem to hold themselves to any.
Yeah, no, this is so sad, and it's since day one. Since day one, even before knowing that the girls were killed, when they were looking for the girls, they called off the dogs. They were not looking for the girls using dogs. That's so stupid. It's day one, and then you go, and as Fishy said, after 4 or 5 years, they bring the blood pattern expert. What about the hair that was found on Abby's hand? They did a test, but they didn't care too much the person who who was the actual match in the family. They just took for granted that that's not important. The headphone jack. I understand that there are some possible explanations, but if you are an investigator, you have to do a proper research. You just you don't go 5 minutes or five no during the process you go to do a search in Google. That's unacceptable. They were not collecting the sticks because they were not items of evidentiary value. It's so stupid. This investigation was so crappy, man.
I know, and the bad part about it is I don't care what anyone else's opinions are. Somebody thinks Richard Allen is the guy, and that's fine. But let's be honest about it, okay? Let's be honest about it. I mean, don't try to normalize the way this investigation was run. Don't try to normalize taping over the video interviews, losing other interviews, switching sketches in the middle don't try to normalize all that. Okay. I like to say, Richard, I think Richard Allen's guilty, but the investigation was a joke. Okay. I can buy that. But this, pretending this investigation was run well is you lose credibility when you do that. Because there's no way anybody can believe this investigation was run properly. And not only was it improperly run, it was the public relations, from a public relations standpoint, it's been all misleading, all disinformation, everything to kind of steer away from what the real problem was. It's like I said, when I go into it, I try to look into, rather than trying to find a POI, look into why is this case not been solved, right? It's because the incompetence of law enforcement in this case, period. It's no harder than that.
100%, man. So sad. This is so sad. Oh my God.
And I think, unfortunately, the corruption, if you want to call it that again, was brought on from the incompetence. They thought I guess they thought they expected us to lie, cheat, steal, than to admit that we can't investigate a case properly. I don't know. I think people don't. I don't think people have an expectation that those guys are perfect. I think a little being forthright and honest and will get you a lot further than lying to people. So
definitely, because if you're forthright and honest, then you can take steps to fix it. But if you're just trying to hide it, then you're never gonna take any steps to look at what you're doing wrong. And there was the one county commissioner that was telling Tobe Lesby, do you guys need to get somebody in there to look over and see what you guys are missing, or is it time to bring somebody in to just go through and see if you guys missed anything? And Tobe was I appreciate that, but I think we're fine. And it's it was their pride too, and they just kept it all incestuous in their little group that also fucking Jerry Holman is in charge of the Florida fires. What are we seeing there? Same fucking problem. No, it's not solved. So maybe you should not be promoting Jerry Holman, but getting some other people in there to look at it, because you guys he's not doing a great job, I would say, in my opinion.
Yep, agreed. I mean, it's but again, if you're interested in perception and image and all that, then you and you're pretending that it was just well run and all that, then the promotion kind of goes along with that, right? I'm promoting this guy because he did such a great job. Well, that's all smoke and mirrors, for the people who really know what happened.
It's a sad story. I think it's just a sad story right there.
It is. too bad. It's too bad.
I was muted. Do you think that the fact that Doug Carter is just retiring, or he just retired, that played a part in this situation? Like he wanted to retire having someone behind bars. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think they wanted everything buttoned up so they didn't have like outside eyes coming in and looking at it. I think that played a part with like the sheriff selection and also with like Doug Carter like stepping down. They needed it to be buttoned up so that nobody else was going to go in there and bring like fresh eyes on it. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, all of their rhetoric now is so ridiculous. It's like, oh, why did you let the FBI go? Well, they don't video, or they don't video audio tape their interviews. Yeah, well, they don't. That's a policy that they have. The FBI always had, only for a short period of time was it ever changed and then changed back. And they have reasons for that. He knows that. If you knew that prior, then why bring them in? Why bring them in if you knew that? Why is that the reason that you let them go? That's not the reason you let them go. I mean, that's to say something like that and want people to believe it's just a joke. It's like, you lost yours. You taped over yours. You lost another month of others, but you got a problem. You got a problem with them not taping, not recording them. Stop. At a point, it just gets ridiculous. It's like I was saying, they just feel like they can say anything, and we're supposed to just, oh, okay, you're law enforcement. It's our job to believe you, and so we will.
Plus, how are you going to say that wasn't important to the case if you're going to also at the same time say that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, why? Yeah. Oh, we got rid of them because they don't record anything. Well, you lost all yours. You lost the important stuff. So I mean, it's just. I mean, that's that's why they would never. None of those guys are ever going to do an interview with anybody who can, call them on the matter, call them on the carpet. They're not going to. They're only going to do interviews with friendly, and so they can keep that whole thing going. And they can do just like they did in the Buster Hernandez. Hey, look, we solved this big case.
Yeah, and where's the freaking transcripts from the 3-day hearing and all the other stuff? Like, get on it, okay?
Right. Exactly.
Do you think that an appeal is going to happen? That is likely or unlikely, or what's your feeling about that?
I don't. I mean, I know there's so much legal involved in that, and reversal and all that. I will say this: I don't think they won't. I don't think the prosecution won't say second trial. Well, I mean, that's obvious, but I mean, I really don't. I mean, that'll be a problem, a big problem, because the defense is aware now of things that they weren't aware of before, because they weren't allowed to be aware of it, because it wasn't delivered in the proper manner correctly. It wasn't delivered in discovery correctly. But as far as an appeal, and the percentages are really low. I mean, I know, so I wouldn't say I would probably be optimistic about it, but if a second trial happened, I would say the odds of getting it overturned would be good.
Yeah, I think it would be ideal to have an appeal, at least to try to solve some questions, because there are a lot of unsolved questions here.
Yeah,
This is sad.
it's going to have to be some legal grounds, and I'm just not familiar. I mean, I don't know the law well enough to know if anything was violated and done badly enough to where there can be an appeal. So we'll see.
His interrogations are damning. Like, I don't know if we know that, Dan. Like, do we? Are they? I don't know. We didn't see him. From what I heard, that those were actually like the things that weren't damning. That people were like, "Oh, he was acting like an innocent person would." So,
well, that was part of what I was talking about. There's a certain amount of trust we have to have with law enforcement and the prosecution to get to a conviction. Richard Allen, right? Like, the interrogation was damning. We don't know all of it. So that's, there has to be some trust there. I'm just not willing to go there based on how they've acted in the past.
well, Dan knows, so maybe we could talk to him about it. See what he knows and how he knows it.
Anyway, that's what he's willing to. I mean, like I said, I don't have a problem with anybody's opinion on anything. I just don't. I just want everybody just be honest about it. I mean, just say there was something screwed up.
We know from court viewers, that's like saying that eyewitnesses are fucking solid evidence. Like, that's literally what you're taking it as, like, eyewitness testimony. Like, I'll wait for the transcripts to come out or the actual interview. I want to watch that myself because, like, as far as like the court viewers, like, on many points, a lot of them had they saw different things. That's how eyewitnesses work. Like, not everybody sees the same things. It's basically like what your brain is focusing on, and it's not like anybody's fault. It's not like they don't have the best intentions, but like, I don't believe any of those people either. Like, they were like tired and they're trying to write down everything that they're like seeing, and it's impossible for us to know, like, in my opinion, like, a good representation of what that interview contained.
Yeah,
I agree, and even if they were trying to take notes in an accurate way, there are some bias there. They are gonna retain what they think is according to their own narrative in some way. It's natural. If you think that he's guilty, you take the guilty points. I knew it, and it's the opposite if you think he's innocent. So I agree with you, Fishy. We need to see the transcripts to
Dan,
have
I'm
an.
not taking the defense team either, because I didn't then say, oh, the defense said this, and this happened. I'm saying, like, I just want to see it for myself. I don't want to like take anybody's opinion for what it is.
100%. And do you think, or do you know, what type of material are we going to be allowed to have? Let's say, I imagine that the transcripts, for sure, we're gonna have that. But let's say the interrogations of Richard Allen, the Blitz guy video, that type of material, are we gonna be allowed to have that? Is gonna be like a public
Well,
material?
I think that there's one of the like big media organizations has requested that stuff, and they, I believe, like, have their lawyers on it saying that, like, they're representing the people and it's the people's best interests for that to be like released expedient, like, not wait for the appeal and stuff expeditiously, I guess it would be. But so I think we'll find that out just from that media organization going through the court process. But as far as, like, they're not going to give us anything easily. Like, that seems like what it's come down to is they don't want people to see stuff, and that just is fucking wild to me. Like, why? Like, put that shit out there, dude.
Yeah. If this was such a slam dunk, then we can't wait to put it out. Hey, here it is. See, we were right. I hide it all. People hide stuff for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
And people want stuff to be out there, like we've seen, for a reason. So if you got a slam dunk case, and hell, you'd want it out there. If I was the prosecution, I'd be like, man, I want all this stuff out there. It's a slam dunk. But it's not a slam
Not to
dunk.
mention, just the info that we're trying to get is the stuff that they wanted out there, like, for the trial. So, like, that's the stuff that they've, like, curated to say that Richard Allen is guilty. Like, let alone all the stuff that didn't make it to trial and stuff that we are not going to be able to see. Like that shit is like fucking the stuff we're trying to see is all the stuff that they like hand picked to say like this is the best of the best evidence that we have against this guy.
Mhm.
And it's not that solid, I would say.
Right. That's yeah, I agree with that. Like I said, I want everything to be laid out there, and whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, and you know, the truth usually will come to the surface. If you let it out there, you know, all this, you know, legalities and all that crap, just, you know, it's too much. You know, I know it's naive to think that, you know, that trials are still a search for the truth, and it hasn't been that way for a long time. It's about winning, but the truth's still important. You know, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, winning is one thing, but you know, the truth's important.
Well, like winning is fucking bullshit if you don't have the right person. Like you're just creating more injustice and like you're creating more victims and like even like the interviews that law enforcement has given afterwards kind of says that they think that somebody else like it's nobody like is like, oh, Richard Allen is the only guy that did this. Even Holman was like, well, maybe it could be somebody else still. And it's like fucking is your story that you told at in court to convict this guy what you think happened? And if it's not, then why the fuck are you doing that? Like we like, and I think that's what bothers me. I'm okay with it being Richard Allen. I'm not like a Richard Allen defender. I don't want to defend a child killer. Like if he's guilty, then fuck him. I want him to have like all that shit. But like I want to feel like they actually like were seeking the truth, and I just don't feel like that was their intention. I think they definitely were about just winning, and like that's unfortunate for everybody. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Why is he still pushing the cyber aspect of it? Why is he still saying, "Oh, I think somebody lured him out there"? I mean, you introduced zero evidence of that at trial. That was not part of your theory, right? This was a random act of a guy who was just out there, saw two little girls going by and started following them, right? That's the story. Why are you still saying that? I mean, are you trying to get that out there publicly for the funding? The dollars that important? Is that internet crimes against children unit so important to you that and is that have been your narrative all along, and you've got to stick to it because of the millions that you've procured from federal funding? I mean, why would he say that? I mean, you know, why would you know? There was nothing about anything they've introduced that said that. It had to do with their investigation. They would, you know, they never got off of that. That was part of the investigation all the way to the end. That, you know, they were even, you know, even with what I talked about with the Kline thing and about how they let that play out in public for everybody to see. Why'd they let that play out in public for everybody to see?
Yeah, that was crazy.
You know, why'd they let the murder sheet narrate it? You know, basically saying, hey, you know, here's this guy, red Jeep. He's saying this. He's, you know, we know he's not the guy on the bridge, so it must be the dad. Look, they got their money's worth. Okay. Now he got the conviction. Now why is he still pushing that? Why is he still saying, you know, they spent however much it was to look in the river for you know, a month.
I think maybe what's missing though is like it's that behavioral arc that which like we still don't really have like that reason or like that I think that's what it is for me mostly is like they didn't find any child porn or whatever on any of his devices, and like people are like, oh well, they're missing that one device. Like people like that don't just have it on like one device. Like they have like a lot of it going back like, and there's nothing to show that behavioral arc, and like that's, I'm not saying that it's not there, but like we haven't seen any of that. Even like the searches that they were saying were like so damning. Like, check out my search history. Like, damn, I've definitely be convicted like all day long. But like those are just like movies he was looking for. People
Yeah.
that want to watch like Taken or whatever aren't fucking kidnappers. It's just a movie.
Yeah, I think Sleuthy's right. It's about the money. The money will go away. You know, money will stop. So it's because the money will stop. I think that's it. I mean, look at it. Look what we showed. 11 days after the murders, they're talking about funding. They're still talking about the cyber aspect, right? I mean, it's about that. It's about the money. There's really, it pretty much spells it out. I mean, it's like, hey, we don't have enough money to catch these kind of criminals, and this may be a guy who just killed 2 little girls who we walked up on,
And gay porn too, huh, Dan? Sorry.
No, I think I do. I agree with that. It's about the money, and that's why I wanted to show that tonight, because we're talking about a decent amount of money. We're talking about in the however many years, what's it been, almost 7 years, they've received $10 million. That's significant.
Well, and also like the reward money, like it's quite convenient that the reward money goes to the ISP whatever fund that they're holding on to it. Like, do you know? And also they like stopped reporting how much money was in that fund, like way back in the beginning when it was like 250,000 or something. Right. Like what exactly, like who was keeping track of like how much was going into that fund and stuff? Like, I mean, they were like literally going on a media campaign. I've never seen the cops go on a media campaign like that. I don't know. It's just all weird.
Yeah, you're right. I agree. It's like I said earlier, I've never seen a law enforcement agency with the as image conscious as this group is, for sure, and obviously financial conscious as well.
Do you have any? I'm not gonna say a hypothesis or any other suspect. I know you don't have that, but like any idea of what happened or feeling? Let's say a feeling in this crime. Let's say, do you think there are multiple actors or just one actor? Do you think the girls were killed the same day, or they were abducted and put back to that area and killed the day after? Or you just don't know anything about that? I want to know your opinion about that.
I'll be honest. I really don't. I mean, I go back and forth on, because we've all heard so many things, and when we try to get something concrete from law enforcement, we get exactly the opposite. So it's impossible to know what's fact and what's not. There's some things that definitely suggest more than one person was involved. There's some, when I visited the trails a couple of years ago, the very first thing I noticed, and I came back and talked about it a lot, was the path that leads from the bridge, basically from the bridge, about 25 feet from the bridge, from the north end of the bridge, down to the crime scene. When I went there, Julie Melvin came over and met me, and she showed it to me. She said, "I want to show you." She goes, "Here, you want to go down to the crime scene?" I said, "Sure." And so we started walking down this. It's a very visible. I mean, it's just a very obvious path. You go down, you go straight to it, right where the girls. Here's where the girls were. I was like, it took us like 10 minutes to get down. I was like, Julie, there's no way they weren't found. There's no way they weren't found that night. I mean, this is the easy. I mean, this would have been. I mean, seriously, if you knew the girls, you dropped them off at the mirrors, and they were going to the bridge, this is the only path in between there. And that path has been taken. There's just no way. And then when I heard the first time, it was like, well, the first time anybody ever tried to access that was somebody by boat, by canoe or whatever. They tried and they got stopped or whatever. I was like, hold on. There's 4 ways to access the crime scene where the girls were found. You can go the path, cemetery, Logan's property, or by the creek, by boat.
Oh
right?
man, you're gonna go to the canoe? That one will get me every
It's the
time.
hardest way to get there, and the path's the easiest. So you're telling me the first time somebody tried to access it was the hardest way? No. There's something about that. I don't know the answer, but there's something about that there's something that happened there that we don't know about. I mean, even Carter in the Down the Hill documentary, or podcast, said he refused to answer the question, why weren't the girls found that day? So I'd rather not answer that. Why? Again,
he just spews out bullshit.
That's just part of that BS. What happened? Okay, what happened? Something happened. You're not wanting to talk about it because something happened that you consider negative, right? It's not a good thing. Well, what was it? It could fill in a lot of the gaps for us. I don't know. It's frustrating. It's frustrating when you're trying to get to the truth and there's so many roadblocks, so many hurdles to try to clear that and it's being done by the people that you're supposed to entrust. I just don't get that. I don't get it at all.
What about you, Fishy?
I don't remember what the question was.
One actor, multiple actors, the girls killed the same day, the day after.
Oh, honestly, like I have no idea. I think there's like many ways it could be, and like there's no way for like us to know. But I think Ron Logan is like as good a suspect as any because he literally like just had to go home. So like if people are saying like, oh, they didn't see anyone else on the trails, it's like he like, and just the way he like walked down there and he was like down the hill and like went up with his voice, and I don't know, all that's weird to me. And like I mean, I don't know, like it doesn't seem like it would be like, I don't know, like I just want to know like where's the phone data for people there from 1 to 5? Like it's not that wide of a time frame. Like let's get some real evidence in here and stop like surmising on these fucking people. Like I just want them to have done a better job investigating it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about the 3 phones that were unidentified near the crime scene that weren't allowed in? I mean, that's why weren't those allowed in? See, again, that's more just legality bullcrap that I just hate. It's like somebody was around the crime scene. Tell us who it was.
Yeah.
And tell us if they were investigated properly.
There obviously wasn't any of the witnesses, too. Probably, right?
They didn't want it. I know the prosecution did not want any. They didn't want, They wanted to be very defined. Here are these 2 gals that are witnesses. Nobody else was in near the crime scene at the time that the girls and bridge guy were on the bridge. It couldn't be anybody else. I mean, it just doesn't seem like a very I don't know. I mean,
plus, why would the killer be seen on the trail if he planned it out and he was trying to kill somebody? Why would he be seen by people on the fucking trail? Like that shit always has driven me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You think you try to avoid it, right?
Yeah, like the plague. Like you definitely wouldn't go down the main road or down the trail. You'd go like in the woods.
Well, again, I think that goes back to that, the investigation changed because of circumstances, and they just won't admit to that. They just will not admit to it. I don't know why. Sarah Carball and Betsy Blair were not the 2 initial witnesses. That's a fact. They weren't. That's what law enforcement wants you to believe. They don't want you to hear anything else. They don't want you to hear any the stuff that happened in the investigation, other than what pertains to their agenda.
Well,
Right?
Skip, it would confuse the jurors. It would confuse the jurors to know anything that goes against Ronald Logan. You know, like reasonable doubt, that would confuse the jurors. Like, fuck you, Judge Bull. Like, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just,
One of the things that bothers me a lot is the lack of defensive injuries on the hands of the girls. That's really weird. So that's to me the main indication that that there were multiple actors here. It's one person is almost impossible to do that. You have a gun in one hand. You have a knife. You have two girls, like, and you don't have any defensive injury in any of the hands of the girls. Is the natural answer or the reflex of any person is to protect yourself. So to me, it's almost impossible that only one person did that. It's just my opinion.
Box cutter, that's something different. I mean, that's the whole thing about the box.
Yeah,
cutter.
it is.
Real, that just adds to the was it when the box cutter came in? Why not say, hey, our theory is there was possibly two knives. Just two knives suggests two different people, and that throws a wrench in that. I mean, I'll say this from I guess what he was supposed to do, and he had a lot of help from the judge, but McClellan narrowed the investigation down to a level to where nothing else was important except Richard Allen being on the bridge at 150 when Betsy Blair saw him, the girls walking in that direction, and they walked down the hill, went across the creek, and he killed them. And it could have been with a box cutter, right? So we're basing this all on we know somebody was murdered, and this guy was the only guy in the area. Couldn't have been anybody else, and that's basically what it came down to. And it's just like, if you would have allowed, if everything would have been allowed in, there would have been a lot of potential reasonable doubt. People would have asked, well, maybe there was a second guy, maybe there was, but what was allowed in and what wasn't allowed in played a big role. Particularly they weren't allowed to talk about. They weren't. Look, I know everybody thought that the Odin thing was completely about third party. It was, but that was really a byproduct of law enforcement attacking the investigation. That's where they were. I mean, not law enforcement, defense attacking the investigation. That's where they were going. The third party aspect of it was just kind of a byproduct of of the bigger picture there. Well, once all that was thrown out, you couldn't talk about sketches, you couldn't talk about third party, you couldn't talk about any of that, right? So you couldn't talk about the investigation. So you were all just meant to believe what McClellan told you, which was this very narrow focus scope, and that's all that was allowed. And so, I mean, it doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem the way that our justice system should work. And maybe there will be some redemption somehow with the appeals and everything. I don't know, but I don't know. It doesn't seem right at all. And it seems like the people that are important in it were all kind of, on board with this, and that just, I don't know, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, man. What do you think, guys? Let's do you have any other point or element to discuss tonight, or
I don't know, but I feel like we're leaving it on a very depressing note. Like, it's pretty sad. Like, honestly, it's depressing.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. But let's see. I really wish an appeal is gonna happen. I know it's unlikely, but I think it would be the best thing for everyone here, including I know that this is gonna sound sarcastic, or I don't know, but even for the family, because as you said, Fishy, we need actually the justice is for the girls. So if the wrong guy is behind bars, this is not full justice. And as you said, if Richard Allen is the guy, yeah, fuck him. But I think they need to prove their case. I don't know.
I wish some of the stuff on social media would everybody just take a little bit of a break, instead of focusing on, going after other people. That doesn't. I don't see where it does any good, and it. I mean, like I said, I don't care what anybody else thinks. They can, they can have their opinion on it, and I don't say negative things about them. I don't understand this whole just because you have a different opinion of someone else that you attack them. I mean, I've never understood that about this case.
Yeah. Same here.
I mean, I think everybody seriously should take a look in the mirror and that's not really. I mean, that's it's gotten too much. The doxing, the hacking, the whatever's been done. I don't know, but it's just it's too much.
Yeah, it is. I don't know, man. Just sad. Don't know what to say.
Just like be nice to each other, like even if you don't agree with somebody, you can still be nice to them. And like you just if things are getting too heated, just walk away, man. Just walk away. Don't be like so edged into your thoughts because I think we all don't like child killers. I think that can be said. That's one common ground. I think we all give a fuck,
Yep.
Yep. I agree.
I did. Yeah. I just. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with wanting it to be done right and being done. I mean, there's procedures and protocols in place for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with holding people to that standard. Particularly people who have the ability to, I don't know. It's like I said, I just don't get the social media, the angst and the.
Hey, Skip, Paradox misses you, and he's sad that you don't talk to him.
I don't really talk to anybody anymore just because of all that stuff. I like Paradox. He's a good guy. And it's not any, I just really don't, I don't know. Maybe I should give him a buzz sometime.
Just a little buzz, just to be like, what's up?
Yeah. Probably should practice what I preach, right?
No, I like to just like say stuff but not do it, That's the best way.
Yeah. No, but this was good. I appreciate it, Cryptex. Always enjoyed being on your show. It's great.
Well, thank you so much, Skip, for being here again. It was great. I enjoyed the show a lot. And thank you for the idea of inviting Fishy tonight. It was awesome, man. And thank you, Fishy.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed her channel. I always thought it was a good opportunity.
Yeah, I was stoked. I was like, I get to be in this little group. Hell yeah.
I was thinking it was like two weeks ago. It would be cool to have Skip again, part 3, like the trilogy. And you know that when you think about the Matrix, you have the trilogy, but they did a part number 4. So Skip is gonna be a part 4, Anytime.
Okay, I'm up for it.
Thank you so much
You said love it, I'll be here.
for tonight, and thank you guys in the chat.
Yep.
See
Good
you.
night.
Good
Yeah,
night.
good night, everybody. Stay safe.
Stay safe. Just gonna play a quick video here, guys, to finish the.
You can skip the gym, you can skip the ball. One thing you can't miss, I will tell you the truth. That is JANSEN skip, the legendary one's move. You can skip church, you can skip school. But if you skip, you are maybe a fool. We're skipping tonight, there is script your mate. But there is one more, she is don't hate create. We're skipping here tonight. There is script your mate. But there is one more, she is don't hate create. She is don't hate create. She is don't hate create. Baskets that you can skip school, you can skip job, you can skip the gym, you can skip B.O.B.O.B. One thing you can't miss, I will tell you the truth. That is JANSEN skip, the legendary one's move. You can skip church, you can skip school. But if you skip, you are maybe a fool. We're skipping tonight, there is script your mate. But there is one more, she is don't hate create. We're skipping here tonight. There is script your mate. But there is one more, she is don't hate create. She is don't hate create. She is don't hate create. Down! We skip here tonight. There is script your mate, but there is one more. She is don't hate create. She is don't hate create. She is don't hate create. Down to it now go. Down to it now go. Down.